Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of January 3rd to the 9th, where I take a look at some of the stories that have caught my attention this week, and there are 4 stories though. Before I begin, I do want to say, and I'm not going to go full on talk about this, I've made my thoughts very clear on social media, whether it's on Twitter and Facebook. I'm sure most of you saw what happened on January 6th, 2021, though, and the whole world saw what happened, and it is shocking, disturbing, and a lot of people are very, very angry about what just happened, though, and there is certainly a lot of blame going around, particularly to one certain individual, which I won't name, but you know which individual I would be pointing to very clearly, and he deserves every single inch of criticism and backlash that is going in his direction after what we just saw. It is very shocking and very disturbing indeed, and I hope that we never see a situation like that ever again in any way possible, though. But like I said, that my video will not be focused on what happened on January 6th, 2021. I've already made I've made my point clear on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm going to stand behind what I said about the whole situation, though. I'm focused on this My 2 Cent on several stories that caught my attention, including the unfortunate shutting down of Battleborn, though. Rumors about the Switch, another rumor about Switch Pro or Switch.to, that, depending on your view, may or may not be this big advancement in the Switch, as some people like to refer to it. We've also seen a controversy surrounding the game Cyberpunk Ghost Story, in which supposedly the developers have issued a statement in regards of people demanding the game to be censored on all this stuff. It's worth pointing out this game is coming to the Nintendo Switch. And of course, we also have Nintendo actually bought a studio and all that stuff. And it's one that I'm not really surprised by this decision and all of that. But before we get started, we'll take a look at basically the quick My 2 Cent part. These are stories that not going to go into a huge amount of details, but certainly did caught my attention indeed. The first one is supposedly a random leak of supposedly the names of games that are going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch. Many are pointing to it being fake, which to me, obviously, it's more than likely fake. While there's always that 1% chance that it could be somewhat true, I would say, and I may be maybe this might be blown way out of proportion for some, but I would say 99.9% of the time it's more than likely false, and we've been down this road many times. So anytime someone leaked to claim that they have information about a direct or anything like that, I take it with a huge grain of salt until we know for certain that there is actual verification about it. We also learned that SNK will be revealed the first 2 fighters for Samurai Showdown for the Season Pass, for Season Pass 3. The game's also available on the Nintendo Switch and on different platforms, including Google Stadia to be exact. Supposedly it's facing a delay a little bit and all that, so there's some issues of the delay and all, so we'll see when these characters will eventually be revealed. We also learned that the Monster Hunter demo, which is available now, apparently caused the Switch eShop to kind of shut down because everyone wanted to download the game and all that stuff. I understand, because I tried downloading it last night and there were issues trying to access the Nintendo eShop and all, but apparently as of right now, today, I was able to, looks like I'm still able to download it and all, and if the download's officially complete, I'm going to give a go on the Switch game of Monster Hunter Rise and see how that game plays, especially with the game supposedly running on the Resident Evil engine and all. We also learned that a hard book of Ask Iwata, for those who are not familiar though, during Iwata's tender at Nintendo, or should I say the late Shigeru Iwata's tender at Nintendo, though, he did something called Ask Iwata, where he asked developers and talked to them, especially going through the process of what went through when these games were being developed and all that stuff. It's a very interesting look at how the games were developed and all that stuff, and it looks like we're going to get a hard book cover of the Ask Iwata, which will be out in the US on the 13th of April and the 15th of April in the UK, though. It's something especially if longtime Nintendo fans want to consider taking a look at, though. It's very interesting when he did those Ascawalas and all that. And finally, we are learning that we're getting 2 physical versions of a game from Limited Run Games. The first one is Shiren, Shiren, The Wanderer is going to get a physical release, and pre-orders will start on January 12th, while the physical version of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World from Ubisoft is also beginning one as well. I think it starts also on January 12th. I'll have to double check and all that stuff. Both of these games also will be coming to the Nintendo Switch, which also is a physical version for the Switch is going to happen, all that stuff. I might check out both, particularly Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, because I never played that game when it originally came out, but now that it's coming to the Nintendo Switch, it's definitely one I will definitely keep an eye on and all. Okay, with the quick My 2 cent part now done, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with Nintendo, particularly them buying Next Level Game and all. Now, when people think of Next Level Games, most people think of them, collaborating with Nintendo. While they have done games outside of Nintendo, like outside working with Nintendo, like Transformers, Cyberpunk Adventure, Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon, and the PS3 version of Captain America, the First Avenger, PS3 and 360 version, all that stuff. But most people know them from developing games for basically, Nintendo system, whatever was on the GameCube and the Wii era, like Mario Striker, to basically developing, the Luigi's Mansion game, including Dark Moon on the 3DS, and the Nintendo Switch version and Nintendo Switch of Luigi Mansion 3, which that game did very well, to be exact. But they're also known for some controversy, such as the whole issue surrounding Metroid Prime Federation Force, a game that, didn't exactly sit well with a lot of consumers and all that stuff. And Nintendo disabling the likes and dislike and the comments from that video, let's just say it really didn't help, and the game was unfortunately a failure and all that stuff. Maybe if it was a different game and all, that would have made sense, but with it taking place in the Metroid universe, didn't exactly sit well with everybody, to be exact. Either way, though, it looks as though that basically Nintendo has decided to go ahead and purchase Next Level Games and all. In an article, let me see if I can get it out. Oh, there we go. In an article from Nintendo Life, it reads that, quote, Nintendo is buying Luigi's Mansion Studio Next Level Games. Deal will mean an improvement in development speed and quality. It reads that, quote, Nintendo is buying Canadian developer Next Level Games, it has announced. The studio, which had created such titles as Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario Striker's Charge, Punch-Out!, the Wii version to be exact, and Metroid Prime Federation Force will become wholly owned subsidy of Nintendo. Next Level, which was established in 2002, has been working closely with Nintendo for quite some time, but in the past has also collaborated with the likes of Activision, Transformers Cybertron Adventure, EA, NFL Hits Pro, and Sega, Captain America, Super Soldier. Okay, I said First Avenger, but alright, yeah, Super Soldier. However, in recent years, the studio has described itself as a AAA Nintendo developer and made it clear that it's focused on Nintendo systems, so the purchase makes a lot of sense from that perspective. Nintendo states that the acquisition means the company can secure the availability of next-level game development, resources, including development expertise, and facilitate an anticipated improvement in development speed and quality by the enabling closer communication and exchange of staff with Nintendo's development team. The deal is expected to become official on March 1st of this year. So to me, I would say this announcement is certainly nice to see that Nintendo's bringing in another development studio and all that stuff. Or buying another development studio. The ones we've known so far are Retro Studio and Monolith and all that stuff. But at the same time, though, I'm not completely surprised by this and all that stuff. It doesn't have the same kind of wow factor in a way when last year Microsoft bought Bethesda. That kind of surprised a lot of people. To me, this kind of feels like the kind of situation I saw with when Sony decided to buy Insomniac Games and all that stuff. Outside of maybe a couple games here and there, Insomniac, for the most part, has developed for the PlayStation system and the PlayStation brands. So to see Sony purchase Insomniac wasn't really that shocking. And for me, I'm not really surprised by this one as well. Like Insomniac in a way, majority of the games that Next Level Games has worked on has pretty much on Nintendo systems, to be exact. So this isn't really a huge surprise that they decided to buy them, though. But it's going to be interesting to see what Next Level Game does under being under Nintendo's umbrella and all that, or under, you know, the whole Nintendo family and all that and all. Personally, I would love to see another entry in the Mario Striker series. I would love to see one on the Nintendo Switch. Another game I would like to see is, of course, Punch-Out! Another entry in the Punch-Out! Series would be nice to see on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, the Wii version definitely showed that Next Level could develop a Punch-Out! Game, and while that game was fun and enjoyable, don't get me wrong, the only new fighter we had was Disco Kid, and that was it, though. Imagine if they gave the reins for Next Level Games to develop a brand new Punch-Out! Game to come up with brand new fighters, all new fighters to take on, though. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't mind seeing some other ones return, especially from the Super Punch-Out! Series, though, but I would definitely like to see them create brand new fighters, though, if, say, another Punch-Out! Game were ever happen. And if they ever decided to do Luigi's Mansion 4, I would be down with that too. Although, I would be okay with a port of Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and the original Luigi's Mansion coming to the Nintendo Switch. That would be nice if that were to ever happen, though. But overall, I would say it's not really that surprising to see Nintendo buy Next Level Games, considering that how they developed mostly for the Nintendo system, though. But nevertheless, it will be interesting to see, now that they are owned by Nintendo, what the future holds for them. Hopefully, Nintendo handles the studio better than, say, how, well, EA handles the studios they buy, and I'm sure most of you already know the reputation that EA has earned when they have purchased studios before. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2, and this one has to do with the controversy surrounding the game Cyberpunk Ghost Story. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, I want to take a look at the situation surrounding a game called Cyberpunk Ghost Story. Now, we've heard stories about censorship or in video games in general, especially if there are certain games that are from, like, you know, from one part of the world come and make their way over here. We saw the situation with one of the games from Koei Tecmo that when it was revealed, some of the character, well, let's just say a certain part was covered up, and that raised questions about censorship, but Koei Tecmo downplayed that and all that stuff. We've heard stories about, you know, Sony changing some of their policies in terms of what games could be on their system that prompted questions about the future of certain series like Galgun, the creator of the Serene Kagura series, stepping down from Marvelous and leaving sort of in protest of Sony's decision. To last week, I talked about, I believe it was last week, about Microsoft's decision to not allow, decided that after meeting with Indie Creates that Galgun Return was not going to come to the Xbox One, which, as I said before, it is Microsoft's system. They could choose to, if they don't want to have that game on the system or not, but that doesn't mean I 100% agree with that decision and believe that as long as the game stays within the ESRB rating system, the game, then if that's the game the developer wants to make, then that's the game the developer wants to make. But in an interesting story in regards of a certain situation of a game called Cyberpunk Ghost Story, there seems to be calls for the game to be censored due to the content that is supposedly in this game. In several articles, though, the first one from Nintendo Life, it reads that Top Hat Studios issue a statement regarding demand to censor a Cyberpunk Ghost Story, though. Basically, it reads in the original article. Basically said that, quote, Top Hat Studio, one of the developers of the upcoming side-scrolling survival horror sci-fi game, Cents, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story, which is coming to the Switch and I believe other platforms as well, has issued a statement regarding his apparent call to censor the game after receiving death threats over the art style. The studio categorically refused to censor the title, stating how it won't restrict creative expression and believe creators should be allowed to freely express themselves. According to the same statement, there have been threats to review bomb the title and harass its distributor. In addition to this, it's mentioned how it's passed certification, though. They wrote a lengthy piece on basically Twitter and all. And the article include, if we hear any development, we'll be sure to let you know. A Cents, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story is currently available to pre-order on the Switch for $20 and will be released on January 7th and all. Now, they later updated the story recently with a comment that now has been reviewed, that has come from the developers, though. According to the update, it reads, Top Hat has now shared a series of tweets highlighting the message circulating on social media about Cents, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story in the studio. They've added an attachment to the follow-up response. They said that you can see the full response over on Twitter. It said, quote, we originally did not want to make this post as to not accidentally incite a search for these protesters and cause further fights. However, as there are now industry-adjusted people slanting and gaslighting us as liars, we comply a sample for Twitter, Facebook, and email. Skepticism is healthy in this industry, but it's not universally applied. Not only were many of these comments actively findable in 10 seconds, quote, 10 seconds to verify, but many curious individuals seem to have a vetted interest in slandering us as liars because of their connections. We don't blame people for being skeptical, but keep this energy towards other claims. This isn't about marketing campaign. The game released 5 months ago originally. This was a preemptive response to what we saw was a rising, ridiculous spread of lies and slur aimed at us. We can play semantically, but if you can't understand what a response to such is needed, you're being willfully obsolete, or OBTUSE. We couldn't let false, hateful info spread, and also wanted to reinforce our stance against creative infringements. It certainly got bigger than we expected. With that said, we appreciate sincerely and overwhelmingly support. Really, as we said, we didn't want to make this post, but we aren't going to allow people to spread lies, no less from those with a vetted interest in calling us liars. We aren't changing Cents content, though. Now, as I mentioned earlier, given what has been happening and all that stuff, though, it is, I will say, it is downright despicable and absolutely deplorable and unacceptable for anyone to spread misinformation and lies and even go as far as making a death threat. That should be absolutely fully condemned, and those folks should not have any access to social media accounts whatsoever and all that stuff. As for the threat to the game being censored and anything like that, or people telling people that this game should be censored, my position has been this, as I mentioned with the Gal Gun not coming to Xbox One. As long as the game stays within the rating system, fine. If this is the kind of game the developers want to make, then it's the game the developers want to make. Ultimately, consumers can decide if they support this title or not. They could choose to buy the title. They could choose not to buy the title. At the end of the day, that's going to be the individual's call. But if this is the game the developer wants to make, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. And as long as they get its appropriate rating, that is okay. I mean, and the fact that so far Nintendo has not pulled this game down, I think that's a good thing, considering that they are taking a different approach as saying, you know what, as long as the game meets the ESRB or the rating system requirement, though, if this is the game you want to put on, hey, go ahead and all that stuff. And I actually think that is a very good thing indeed. And I think I strongly condemn those who are saying that this game should be edited, altered, or changed, or anything like that. Unless there is an absolute severe reason, though, and like the game actually promoting hatred and all that stuff, like or encouraging people to commit acts of violence or anything like that, I don't see any reason for this game to get censored and all. Now, I haven't played the game or anything like that, so I don't know how how I would feel about the game until I actually get my hands on it and try it out myself. But one thing for certain is that I don't think this game should be censored at all, as long as it stays within the rating system. So overall, I think that the death threats should have never happened, or those basically threatening to review bomb the game or spreading misinformation or lies. I think that is wrong. And like I said before, and I'll say it again, as long as this game stays within the rating system, if this is the game the developers want to make, then let them make that game, and consumers can decide whether or not they will spend money on this or not, or whether they like this kind of game or not at all. Ultimately, it is going to be the consumer's decision to decide whether they will buy this game or not. But like I said, if this is the game the developer wants to make, that's fine. Keep it within the rating system, and I don't see that as an issue in any form or any way at all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 3, and this one has to do with supposedly rumors about another Nintendo Switch. Some of it seemed to be pointing to the most likelihood it could be a revision, so we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of our My 2 Cent video, and for this one, we're going to be taking a look at, apparently we have another rumor about the possibility of a brand new Switch, though. Now, we've seen rumors pop up before many times. We've seen rumors about, like the Switch.to or the Switch Pro, to be exact, and we've seen rumors about, like, we're going to see a more powerful Switch and all that stuff. One rumor we heard before was like there were going to be 2 different Switches. One, a much smaller, portable only, and a more powerful one. The portable only one turned out to be true, as we saw Nintendo release called the Switch Lite and all that stuff. So we've heard this rumors and all that before, and this one comes, and now we have a new rumor, this one coming from someone who supposedly has a good history and all that stuff about the possibility of a new Nintendo Switch. But this one may not be on the level of like the Switch Pro or Switch.to or anything like that. Now, as always, these are rumors, so everything that is said, everything I'm going to read about this should be taken with a huge grain of salt and all, as there's no way to 100% verify if this information is true or not. That being said, though, I will say some of it seems, I will say, at least from my view, somewhat more believable than past rumors I've heard about a Switch Pro or Switch.to and all that stuff, but still, grain of salt still needs to be taken. But anyway, the article, this one from Nintendo Life, reads about apparently data miner apparently reveals all about the new Nintendo Switch revision. Quote, "It's only the 7th day of the year, and we've already gotten some wild Nintendo rumors circulating online, so grab some salt and read on." According to an article from WCCF Tech, well-known data miner and console hacker SCIRESM has uncovered new information about the rumored Switch Pro model by shifting through firmware codes, although the source says these details may not necessarily be accurate, and there's a fair bit of speculation too. With that in mind, the revision system could apparently be codenamed Aulx, A-U-L-A, and utilize a Marco SoC. In addition to this, it's believed that it will feature both dock and handheld play, 4K support in some way or form, and could potentially include an OLED screen. The Realtek chip might also be in the dock rather than the system. This is what this individual said on Reset Era. According to what they're saying, quote, "Nintendo is working on a new model with upgraded displays stuff and has been for 1.5 to 2 years. I personally believe it's a 4K given the signs I've seen in the firmware, but that's not confirmed yet and could be wrong. The new hardware is codenamed Aura, A-U-L-A, as I mentioned earlier, and is using a Marco SoC system on a chip. There's a bunch of reference in the code, atmosphere support to the new display already in theory. The tablet itself definitely has an upgrade display. I don't know if it's 4K. Aura has firmware support some Realtek chips that advertise itself as a 4K UHD multimedia SoC too, hence my belief it's 4K. That chip might be inside a new dock and it's not inside the tablet, though there's no way to tell from the firmware update. Aura explicitly supports handheld mode. It's not dock only. That's CAL-CIO, which seems like it's from Eternal only, never released, since CAL-CIO has no game card slot and no battery. You could check Boot's SYSMODULE display code if you're curious. The new display doesn't support power management PWM. It has own vendor specific BS I have to reverse engine and implement a month or two ago. Marco has substantially better cooling and better life. It's a Bana FIDE DIE shrink over the original generation. My guess, pure speculation, no firmware indication this is the case, that if they need extra performance, they push it to a higher clock rate across the board. But yeah, I speculate games will be like DSi enhanced games were, or like how some games benefited from PS4 Pro despite working on PS4 Pro. Check my previous discussion with HEXKYZ. The upgraded tablet display is an OLED screen, probably not high resolution on tablet itself, so it gets 4K Realtek chip. It's more likely to be a new dock than I thought it was. Vanilla probably won't. We're in the realm of speculation. Aura has a new GPIO that Redbox doesn't relate to support for this, so I wouldn't technically guess that Redbox unit won't support the new thing. Now, there's a lot to go over. This is from Nintendo Life. You could read the information there. I'll have a link in the description down below, though. Like anything, it's at this moment, it could be anyone's guess. This rumor may or may not be true, but I could technically see, in some form, in some capacity, the idea of maybe when you put the Switch in a dock and all that stuff, that it also can support maybe 4K in some form, in some capacity, whether it's upscaling 4K, which is always a possibility, or true 4K. I'm not sure about true 4K, if that were to ever happen, all that stuff. So I could see, based on this information, if this is true, that this could be like what we saw with, like, you know, like he mentioned the DSi and all, but I could see this in the level of what we went from the 3DS to the new Nintendo 3DS and all. So it looks as though, assuming all this information is correct, that might be the direction Nintendo might be going with their next Switch at this time. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's the direction they truly go, though. I mean, a better display, that certainly would be nice. Maybe improve some of the areas to finally push to like true like 1080p or 720p and all that stuff, though. The 4K one, yeah, it can be iffy, but I could imagine, I wouldn't rule out the possibility of them putting something like that in the Switch dock, where when you dock the system, it does display, it could display 4K in some form, in some capacity. Maybe upscaling, though. I'm not sure about true 4K, but like anything, I could be wrong on that or anything like that. So overall, again, it's still a rumor at this time, though. This information should still be taken with a grain of salt. But based on what I read, though, I will say this one seems, in my view, a little bit more believable than, say, the way out there rumors that we have heard before in the past about the next Nintendo Switch, whether it was a Switch.to or a Switch Pro. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our fourth and final story from our Mind 2 Cent, and this one unfortunately has to do with Battleborn, the game from 2016 from Gearbox, from the original creators of Borderlands series, and its unfortunate demise this week as they are shutting down the servers and all. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our fourth and final part of our My 2 Cent video. And this one has to do with the game Battleborn. Do any of you remember that game? This was a game originally released back in 2016. It was a new game from Gearbox, a new IP. Basically, it was pitched by Randy Pitchford, you know, the guy who makes outrageous, does idiotic things, and basically was famous for the, you know, Alien Colonial Marine debacle, though. Well, he approaches it as a hybrid, single-player, MMOP, first-person shooter, RPG, yada yada yada, all that stuff and all. It was a game that basically came out around the same time as Overwatch, and regardless of whether you think Overwatch was overhyped or not, no pun intended, or anything like that, it clearly, the game, unfortunately, that game, Overwatch did better than Battleborn, and Battleborn started to bomb really quickly. And over the years, 2K decided to try to do anything to salvage it, like trying to, you know, push it to, like, you know, free to play and all that stuff. Well, apparently it seems as though before the end of this month, though, it looks like Battleborn is going to be shut down for good, and no one's going to be able to play it, though. In an article from Game Radar, get the article out. Well, it reads that, quote, later this month, Gearbox Battleborn will finally shut its servers for good, rendering the game entirely unplayable. Gearbox, the publisher 2K Game, actually announced back in 2019 that Battleborn servers will be shutting down permanently as of January 25th, 2021, and remove the game from the storefront shortly thereafter. The month of January 2021 has finally come around, meaning that after the specific date, no one on the face of the planet will be able to play Battleborn, since it's an always online game that requires a permanent internet connection. If you're wondering about the game's single-player component, you won't be able to play that either. Unfortunately, Battleborn requires a connection to the game servers to even boot up, so if there's no servers, there's no launching of the game. In a tweet thread which began below, former Battleborn writer Aaron Linda, if I'm saying the name correctly, reflect on the development of Gearbox shooter. And Linda write, Battleborn really will disappear as of January 25th, and there's literally no way to play the game that 100 people poured months and years of their lives into. Basically, the person wrote on Twitter, quote, Battleborn servers are going dark in just a few weeks. When they do, it'll be like the game never existed at all. All the work and love and blood that went into that game will disappear with it, and I'm really heartbroken about it. In the thread, Lindy, Linde, goes on to say that he might very well release a supercut of all his favorite lines for each character in Battleborn over the coming few weeks. It's a shame all in all, Lindy's tweet really does paint a stark picture of the reality of maintaining an always online game and how it could be completely lost in the history books without a stable player base to support it. So it is kind of sad to see this game go, though. Although its failure, I think you could point to a lot of things of it, though. Some could point to the fact that they released it, like I said earlier, right next to when Overwatch came out, and that might have hurt it as well. Others can point to, you know, Randy Pitchford's bizarre behavior, and he's constantly has done that may have also kind of contribute to it. Others might point to the way the whole Alien Colonial Marine debacle and how that might have impacted Battleborn as well. But I also think it kind of highlights one of the big problems with a lot of these AAA developers and companies as well, who constantly push for this live service or always online approach. And this is really a good example of the downside to it all, is that at any point they could pull the plug on this as well, and that will be it. You won't be able to play the game and all that stuff. It's that, and the fact that not everyone has the time to log in every day to play the game and all that stuff. It's just really sad this happened to Battleborn. Wish it didn't, though, but a lot of things just really went against the game and all that stuff, and to see it now gone, it's sad. I mean, that means that those who bought the physical version of the game, you're basically stuck with, unfortunately, a $60 frisbee. I mean, that's really what it is, and that's really, really unfortunate, though. So overall, very sad to see Battleborn is going to go, and there could be many reasons why the game flopped or didn't do well. But I also think at the same time, it just reinforces the argument of why always online or isn't always a good idea and all that stuff. Why it should be, why there's nothing wrong with having a single player and a multiplayer component. Having an offline mode is always great, and it should be there as well. But at always online, it comes with risks, and this is just the Battleborn being shut down is a good example. Is another, like I said, another example why always online isn't exactly a good idea. No. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Nintendo buying Next Level Game? Were you surprised by this acquisition? Are you not surprised by it though? Are there games you would like to see Next Level Game work on now that they are purchased by Nintendo on the Nintendo Switch? What are your thoughts about a Cyberpunk Ghost Story, or Cents, a Cyberpunk Ghost Story, though? Do you think people are blowing it way out of proportion and calling for this game to be censored and all that stuff? Do you think the developers should censor the game, or do you think the developers have a right not to censor it, though, as long as the game stays within the rating system and all? What are your thoughts about the rumors about this Switch revision, though? Do you think this rumor is true? Do you think it's plausible? Or do you think it's just like the Switch Pro and the Switch.to? It's just nothing, these rumors are just nothing more, nothing more than basically smoke and mirror. And what are your thoughts about Battleborn shutting down once and for all, though? Are you surprised by this announcement, or do you think that it was only a matter of time before this happens? Are you disappointed? Did you like the game? Did you not like the game at all? And do you think this reinforces the argument about people have in regards of live services and all that stuff when companies push that type of approach, like always online and all that stuff, like and live services in broad general, to be exact? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I do hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to. And feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description down below. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye.